Great. Okay, so I've got some pens. I'm going to do like a limited color scheme with this in order to kind of keep things simple, and it's kind of the best way to color stuff in general as an illustrator. You don't want to take forever in order to make something, you know, include every color in the rainbow. So I was going to try to make this more of a night scene. Oh, you know what? We need to switch to the main art view. Okay, there we go. All right, are we good? Everything look okay? Everything sound okay? Okay, good. I'm going to start with this open window here. The shutters are open. Get some light going in there. And while I do, I was thinking about talking about this image, and the person who ordered it reminded me of a story. Okay, so this image is based on a photo that I found online. Couldn't figure out who it was, but it was a young guy jumping off of a ledge, and I kind of made it more dramatic. And my old friend from, well, we called it junior high. Now they call it middle school, but it's you know, middle school is like 7th and 8th, and junior high was 7th, 8th, 9th. Anyway, I hung out with this guy, Kirk. What's up, Kirk? I'm sure he'll see this eventually if he's not live already. So I hung out with this guy, and we had like geeky interests, of course, and liked comics and drawing and all that. Anyway, I moved away to another town. My mom wanted to get out of there, so I moved out of my hometown and to a different one. Don't be trying to track my movements. Anyway, so not long after we moved, I started becoming obsessed with a specific comic, Batman, and that's why it reminded me with this image, because when Kirk was saying which one he wanted to be colored, he said it was the one that looks like Batman. And I was like, don't they all kind of look like Batman? I don't know. Right, it's the guy jumping off of the fire escapes with the homemade cape that says trench coat. Okay, so not long after moving, let's see, what other color was I going to use? Oh, this one. Not long after moving, I became obsessed with Batman, specifically the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns old Batman, old thick Batman, you know. I just thought that was really cool, refreshing take on it, and I think it informed a lot of where Batman went from there in pop culture. So I started like picking up whenever I could find Batman merch. I started off, you know, you'd have to go to the comic book shop and you'd have to buy the one Batman shirt with the Batman standard logo on it, and that was it. And then you could kind of get more merch and more merch. Of course, you know, this was in anticipation of a movie coming out, it turns out. But I was just like, yeah, I can buy all kinds of Batman shirts at Mervyn's and Macy's now. Great, you know. I think that's okay for the window right now. Let's do this one too. So I ended up buying so much Batman merch, and then I'd have my black trench coat on at school, no matter what the weather was, you know, that of course people started calling me Batman. And of course this was when the only pop culture that most people knew about with Batman was the old 60s show with Adam West. So they would, when I walked by, they would go da na 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 da na 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 Batman, you know. That's fine. But you know, I kind of took it as a point of pride at the same time. I kind of liked being the guy that everybody called Batman, right? I'm already realizing this story isn't all that long. That's okay. So we had in our family, let's call him a friend of the family who was like an uncle, right? And he'd come around a lot. His name was Dan. It's like he set the... This might look like this guy set the place on fire. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I overdid it with the yellow and orange. It's okay. We can put whatever story into this that we want, right? So there was this old, lifelong, uncle type figure who was a friend of the family, and he always, would kind of come around and help watch us when we needed watching sometimes. He was kind of more of a big brother, uncle type figure. But he had a lot of problems. Substance abuse, and etc. Well, one time, now we lived not in our hometown anymore. We had moved about 2 hours away from where the rest of the family basically lived. And kind of getting more focused on the story than the coloring, but what are you going to do? Okay, great. Well, one night I was asleep in bed and was awakened by some, voices and things going on in the living room. I was like 16. And I sort of got up and snuck out into the hallway, sneaked. And my mom was out there talking to someone who turned out to be this guy Dan. It was probably 4 in the morning, something like that. Well, Dan had driven through the night to get to our place and was explaining to my mom. Oh, by the way, at this point, the Tim Burton movie had just come out and was like the biggest thing in the world. And Dan is explaining to my mom that he's the real Batman, and that Michael Keaton had come to his NA meeting to meet the real Batman. He liked to do the research. Bragging, and he was like, if you don't believe me, I'll swing off your garage rafters right now. And my mom's just trying to calm him down. When you're coloring, you want to go light to dark as much as you can. Start off with the light areas and then go to dark, which is why I started with the light in the window, which is probably too much. And I'm moving on from there. One time when I was in art school, we heard that rule, it's best to color from light to dark. And this girl was so confused. She came in to class with her next assignment was a painting, and it was like top left corner to bottom right corner, light to dark. And she was like, how could you do every painting light to dark? Left to right was not involved in the equation. She added that herself. Don't be confused. Well, Bat Dan was busy trying to convince my mom that he was the real Batman. And I don't know if I've mentioned this in previous videos, but when I was younger, in my teen years especially, I had this bad attitude or outlook on life. I don't know what you'd call it. pattern of behavior where if somebody was, I had these things in mind. I was kind of a lonely kid, and I had these things in mind that I thought made me special. Even like being skinny. I'm like super thin. That makes me like agile, or have some kind of ninja skills over it. No, I was just skinny. Being creative, drawing. I would get jealous if somebody else did that, as who I didn't know, hadn't vetted. I don't know. Sometimes I would get jealous. Not on everybody, but you know what I'm saying. Well, the point of the story is when Bat Dan was talking about being Batman, I was like, I'm Batman. So I go back into my room and I put on my typical outfit, which was a Batman logo shirt and a trench coat, black trench coat. I don't think I wore motorcycle gloves, but I think my friend who also dressed that way did. It's another story. I come out, it's at this point it's like 4:30, I don't know, 5 in the morning still. I come out of my room dressed as Batman and present myself basically to Bat Dan and my mom. And I could only imagine that she was like, this is not helping, calling more attention to identities and Batman outfits and everything. It's kind of the opposite of helpful, but that's the move I pulled. And I don't remember everything, but I think, things kind of started to calm down. And my mom maybe made Bat Dan breakfast, and I ended up talking to him. And he's super, in a manic state, and he's super psyched about all things Batman. And I think he was kind of excited that I was too, Maybe he had a better reaction to these kind of things. But he's like, you're an artist. I want you to fix up my car to look like the Batmobile, And he had everything all in mind that he wanted it to look like. And, maybe someday I would love to art direct a Batman movie or something, because I would love to see this Batmobile. What it was an old, I don't know, late 70s, early 80s era El Camino. Probably kind of primer, splotchy, Bondo spots. And he wanted me to paint a fluorescent bat symbol on it. There's a lot of like fluorescent back then that was getting, they kind of mash up whatever's trendy at the store. You can buy your fluorescent bat gear pretty easily. So he had a fluorescent Batman hat on, and he wanted me to make his El Camino into a fluorescently themed Batmobile. And I think that, that would look pretty cool. Maybe I could draw that sometime too. I wish I could rock out to the music that I put on a playlist for you. If you know how to do that without hearing myself, I would love to hear that. I can't figure that out yet. Again, this is just a practice run so I can get used to the setup and all of that. And the real episodes are gonna start, live on Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. And if anybody's watching and has some thoughts on things to talk about, go ahead and comment. I'd love to hear. I don't know if talking about learning how to draw is going to be the best value for people. I like, that's fine, but I like talking about, I don't know, learning moments in life and feelings and relationships, and if they tie into art making, because for me everything ties into everything else. So my art creation ties into everything else going on in my life, whether it's helping or hindering the art making. It's interesting to talk about that kind of stuff for me. But if you want to know how to like shade stuff, or I don't know, it just seems like there's a lot of that kind of stuff out there. If you just want to like learn how to paint realistically or draw with a pencil to copy a photo, there's so much stuff out there that that doesn't really interest me. Even if it is about like art instruction, I like thinking about. Let's see what pens I'm gonna use next. I like thinking about the storytelling aspects of illustration. Because let's see here. I'm lost. Hold on. Where did that pen go? I tend to put my pens in my pockets, so I'm going to unload my pockets real quick. Am I holding it? Am I holding it? Just looking for, well, it's gone. That's sad. Okay, well, I guess I'll just keep going with this one. Where was I? Because I think the thing with art instruction is it's fine to like learn how to work realistically, but that's really a starting point. And then you'll continue to learn different techniques, and that's great too. And you'll seek them out. I think mainly when you have something in mind that you want to do, that's when you seek out the specific techniques that are going to help you. If you just kind of try to absorb everything that somebody's talking about, I don't think it's really going to stick for me. So I always try to learn by having a specific project that I'm trying to do as well as possible, and just figure it out as I go along, and accept that, like Edward said, the next one will be better. It's okay. It's okay that the art isn't going to look as good as you wanted it to. It never will. And that is a subject that I was thinking of talking about in the first real live drawing, Let's Draw Goths, on Thursday, which would be like, what do you think about talking about taking criticism and people, I don't know, anywhere between hating and criticism, constructive criticism, it can still be hard to take with all the grains of salt. So that's a good one, and I got lots of stories on times that people have made me feel inadequate about what I'm doing with my art, and sometimes they've been right, and sometimes they, I feel we're wrong or being mean-spirited. But it's important to kind of, I don't know. I guess it's not super important to hold on to those stories when people were just hating, but a lot of times I'll have stories, things that happened in my life that I thought were somebody being harsh, and it turned out that I was just thinking that I was like the king of the world and everything I made was gold. Kind of had a lot of ego when I was younger, and still at the absolute beginning of my learning phases. I really kind of took it too hard when people didn't praise what I was doing, but I don't want to get into that stuff too much. But if you have any thoughts, questions on that, maybe we could talk about that. Was there anything else to say about Bat Dan? Bat Dan, he never really got that manic and delusional that I saw ever again, but he's never quite really gotten his life together either. And I think that if you have various mental issues, it can be hard, especially like I asked if this guy had ever been like diagnosed professionally, and there wasn't really any clear answers on that, which is too bad. I think that's really like kind of the first thing you can do, is at least talk to somebody professional and find out what's going on, and see if there's any ways to work with it. Unfortunately, with my family and circles around them, real talk, it was very religious, at least. So the point is, I think that when you are focused on religion and faith in a God or whatever to fix everything in your life, or especially the things that you're thinking and feeling, it doesn't work out, because if you have mental illness, that's it's like, I'm not a scientist, but there's things squirting around in your brain muscles and hormones, and there's electrical impulses shooting back and forth, and it's a machine going on up there, and if there's something that's not quite squirting the right amount of juices, or there's connections that aren't being made correctly, there is help and medication out there, and I would just encourage anybody to talk to somebody, even if it's not, even if you're not seeing things or feeling like you're Batman or whatever. It's if you're just, well, there's a million things. I can't get into all the mental health issues, but I think you get the idea. The point is, when you look to religion to like answer the questions of what is even going on with a person, it doesn't ever really get resolved. And man, I heard a great quote through my wife yesterday, that there's a lot of people out there in America who would rather go to a riot than therapy, and that is not helpful for anybody. So the point of that story is that there was a lot of talk of Dan being maybe possessed, or having some kind of evil spirits influencing him, or this kind of stuff. Not helpful. So I don't think he ever really got the help that he could have. Me, I eventually fairly recently did, and so I don't do stuff like that anymore. I think mostly that's about growing up, but as far as triggering people who think that they're Batman with your own bad outfit, I apologize for that. What else could I muster? Well, I think this is enough blue for now. This is a lot of blue. The whole point with the coloring is it's supposed to like go faster. So I have to kind of fudge the rest. And I'm trying to go darker, and I'm really sad that my other blue pen is missing out of nowhere. Oh, my other pen is missing. Digging around in my pens on the other side, and you can't hear what I'm saying. I'm just gonna have to fill this in with gray and hope that it looks okay. Let's see. Do a little test spot maybe. Meh, that's fine. Real talk behind the scenes. I got a lot of these to color in for people who ordered them, and I ordered a whole like 70 piece or 100 piece, I don't remember, a huge set of alcohol based markers, because most of mine are either from art school days, like this one, which somehow still has ink in it, or I would buy like, let's see here, these Crayola, like, whoa. There's no reason to like shame the Crayola game. Crayola has great color. This is this yellow here is very bright, and as long as my son doesn't get a hold of pens. They don't seem to dry out quickly or anything. So I use those sometimes. My favorite pens, markers, are the ones that smell. And geez, okay, that brings up another story. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure if I've told this story or not on the channel. I think I have not because I think I recorded the story a couple times and it just felt a little too sad. But I'm not even 100% sure. So I'll just tell it now. Right now. Okay. So I've kind of been trying to track my motivations and what kind of drives me. When I was even just maybe 10 years ago, if somebody asked, what drives you? You know, I'd probably say something snarky like a Toyota. But that's not funny. So I don't do that anymore. But I have been thinking about, you know, what motivations I have in my behavior, you know, in order to kind of take more account of the decisions I make and the impulses I have, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing I've figured out is possibly my whole drive for, I don't think necessarily art making, but more like wanting to sit at the cool table, you know, wanting to be part of the crowd that I want to be involved in. And a lot of times that would be like the funny crowd, you know. But it all, I think, stems from an experience I had in kindergarten where it revolved around the smelly pens. Okay, stick with me for this. I was starting my pattern early on of kind of wandering around through school alone. Not saying I was always a loner, but you know, it was kind of a recurring theme to sort of drop my attention from what was going on around one set of kids and just kind of go check out something else. And the point is, I wandered into the sort of arts and crafts room of the kindergarten, and there were these girls, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them, and they were working on their coloring with the smelly pens. And I had never, you know, seen or heard of this before. The pens, you know, the one they are like Mr. Sketch. They smell like raspberries and licorice and stuff. So I was like, oh, I want to do that, you know. I like drawing and stuff. And, you know, they shut me down. And, you know, as a grown-up, you hear that story and you're like, yeah, you know, kids kind of suck. And honestly, it was a group of girls, and girls are going to shut down the one boy who comes around most of the time. You know, 5 girls letting a boy who they don't know come into their circle and touch their smelly pens, you know, probably not. I get it now, you know, as a parent, as a grown-up, it's fine. But obviously it hurt enough that I still remember it, and it's the thing that I think of every time that I think of, you know, smelly markers, but maybe just coloring in general. I'm probably not going to forget to think about that story. And then I wonder, like, maybe that kind of was my first taste of being, you know, pointlessly cast out of something, not being allowed to play the reindeer games. Let's see here. I think we want to have all of his skin figured out at the same time. Kind of just vaguely thinking about the light coming from this window. I guess I've committed to the place being on fire now. Wasn't expecting that, but you got to roll with it, you know. So actually, I think if I'm going to do that, I'll. Oh, you know what? I think this other yellow will be better. This is what happens. I get all in my own head with the art making, and I end up holding like 5 pens in one hand, which is weird. So I don't know. Sometimes I catch myself trying to be, I mean, especially as a younger adult, trying to be like part of some clique at an employer, you know, a workplace, or just trying to get in with cool comedians or whoever. And like, why? It's like I kind of picture hanging out with the people that I want to hang out with more than. Sometimes you don't know what you're thinking until you say it out loud, but maybe more than the actual craft or the desire to be a good employee, whatever. In the past, I've gone after being in a clique. I dropped my orange pen and I made a dad noise. Oh well. Let's see, is this going to do anything good? Not really, but oh well. Maybe make like a little core shadow there, but it's loosey-goosey. So I don't know what that means, or, you know, if I probably should have brought it up with my therapist. Come to think of it, but I think I'm okay. I don't think everybody's got their stories of things that went on in their life that maybe have informed what they do in the future, right? Like who they want to be around, who they want to be in love with, who they don't enjoy. All kind of comes from these type of stories, and you know, to be real, don't we just remember the stories where somebody made us feel like crap, and we're not as good about remembering the stories from when we made somebody feel bad, are we? So I'll just apologize to the universe for any times that I may have done that. Sure, I remember a handful of times, but most of the times that I was being an idiot towards somebody, I just didn't think it was a big deal, or still thought their life was way better than mine, or I don't know. Who knows? You know, when I was okay, I just want to make sure there's no chat going on here. Okay. So, growing up, I think that part of that comes from part of what? Oh, maybe hurting people's feelings or messing with people. The times that I've done that, I think, is because I had sort of an obnoxious sensibility, obnoxious sense of humor, and I got that from my dad. He had sort of that same, like, still, you know, like messing with somebody, making them uncomfortable or whatever is fun, you know. And so I kind of got some of that myself. So, you know, I was never like a bully, I don't think, to anybody, but, you know, I'd kind of, to my friends or acquaintance friends at school, I would do weird little physical things like push the back of their knee and make their weight get shifted, you know, because their knee was locked. I thought that was hilarious. Stuff like that. So we've all been on both sides, I think. Okay, so that looks super weird, but like I said, you go light to dark, and I'm not even 100% sure that his skin tone's going to look good once I'm done, but I'll just blame Crayola or whatever, right? I don't think I'm ready for black yet. I think like blue-gray, but I don't think I have a blue-gray, so I guess I'll just try to mix these two. It's pretty dark. There's one other story that I'm reminded of doing this because I'm doing it for my old school friend Kirk. And I've never brought it up. We'd hung out a couple times a bit as adults in the Bay Area, but I never asked him about this one time when I had moved away and went back for a visit to the town where I grew up. And I was like, hey, you know, we should get together, hang out. And so I arranged that, and we were gonna like hang out at the park or something, which is fine, except I took a Greyhound bus to town and met a young lady, a girl, you know, on the bus. And at this point in my life, I had next to zero experience with girls, and that's its own story another time. But I don't know, 15 or so. I'm not enjoying this look here. Hold on. So, you know, when you have no experience, you got no red flags, and you're not really going to have any red flags for what to look out in a person until you've made those mistakes for yourself, you know? I mean, I think having like mentors, like who are parents or older siblings or you know, whoever who can kind of point you in the right direction on things helps, but you're not really going to recognize the red flags in somebody until you've had some mistakes of your own. And so that's kind of what happened with this girl that I met. She was troubled, probably had a lot of the same similar troubles as Bat Dan, come to think of it. And well, technically I didn't meet her on the bus because I had met her in school. I was like, hey, you look familiar from school, while we're sitting on the bus, you know? And she's like, yeah, I had gone to the same school as me and Kirk, and she had also moved away. But her move was because turned out she was like in a group home for troubled kids. And I'm not even sure where this story is going, but somehow I ended up getting like romantically linked to this girl. We never, I think we may have held hands once, but never even kissed. Probably because I wasn't interested in kissing her. But back then when I was really young and on into the future, I was so inexperienced with the opposite sex that if somebody did show me interest, I was like, wow, I can't throw this away, you know? We gotta go out. Even if I didn't even have that sense of whether I was interested or not. There was no like censor for that to be like, hey, you're not feeling it. Because I didn't know what feeling it felt like yet, you know? Anyway. So this trip, I think I'm mixing two stories. The first trip, I just met this girl. The second time I went out, we tried to, I think, to arrange it so we both would be out in the hometown at the same time, me and this girl, and hang out. And then I tried to like tack on the hangout with my friend Kirk, which is never helpful. How's this looking? Huh. Never helpful to tack on a visit to another visit. Don't do it. But that's what I tried, and it was just super awkward, you know, because I was like trying to do what I thought would be like romantic in front of this girl, and it was, but like Kirk was around too, and it was just super lame and awkward. And like I said, I wasn't even really into the girl, so it was pretty weird that I would like try to be wooing her in front of another guy, but whatever. We all gotta learn to like flirt and woo in our own time. See, I've got like 8 pens in my hands. All right, so my wife, when I get like this, she calls me Renderella. I'm just trying to figure this out as I go along, and it's to medium low results. The next one will be better. Well, I'm not going to name any names, but that school that me and Kirk went to was oftentimes rough, and I think that that age range is always going to be problematic. You know, your middle school, junior high age kids are going through a lot of stuff, and that's to be expected. But you know, we had a strange mix of kids at that school, and a lot of them had their own problems, and I'm sure all kinds of stuff going on at home, and they'd just kind of go around looking for somebody to beat up while they were at school, and there wasn't really a lot of purpose for them to be there otherwise, in their own minds at least. Definitely in the minority, being one of the people into comics and stuff at that age, at that time. The idea that there would be like the entire movie industry would be about comic book characters, you wouldn't have been able to convince me of that at the time. But when I would see somebody else who was interested in comics, I'd be like, oh wow, I gotta talk to this person, you know. I mean, could you imagine being at Comic-Con now and you're looking around? Well, not right now, but being at Comic-Con and seeing hundreds of thousands of people who, on some level, are geeks like you and interested in comics. And you're like, well, I got to talk to all these people. But one time, I was walking down the halls and I saw this tiny, slight little boy of a boy who had to have been like in 7th grade, and he was walking the other way down the hall, and I noticed that he was carrying an X-Men comic book, and I was like, oh wow, that kid's got an X-Men comic. So I kind of like was like, hey, X-Men. You know, the instant I kind of reached out that way, some other kid randomly shoved the kid down, stuck out his leg and tripped him. I don't remember, but this kid went down hard. And his backpack was like bigger than him, and everything went spilling out, and he had to just like start collecting stuff up off the ground. Before I had a chance to even like understand what just happened, he picked it all up and started to walk away without eye contact with me or anything. I think he still wanted to kind of acknowledge what we were going to talk about, and he just goes, X-Men. I like to think that, you know, I think he was just trying to salvage the interaction somehow and acknowledge me, but I like to think that maybe he was calling out, you know, for help from Colossus or Wolverine or something. Let's see here. Orange? Sure. I like to think about doing something like this as like a color rough. Not to make excuses, but I'm just not really ever sure how it's gonna turn out. So it's just experimenting, and If it really looks gross by the time I'm done, I'll just do another one. It's not a big deal. I used to get really wrapped up in, like, I guess basically, anxiety, where I just, like I said, I had to think of myself as being super awesome at art, and my whole identity was wrapped up in it. So if I would do something that was not to my liking, that I didn't think was good enough, I'd crumple it up and stomp on it, or I'd throw things, even as an adult. And that's not a sustainable way to be. You can't live like that. So I'm feeling much better now. Hmm. This looks so weird. I think I'm gonna have to put another little core shadow here to break up the highlight. My idea was that this highlight going like in an upside down U around his head is more like a secondary reflective light, you'd call it, or a secondary light. And that would be like coming from some dim street light, or even the moonlight sort of bouncing off of him a little bit. And then the main orange here it's called a rim light, and that is used, if you've never employed that or noticed it, start noticing that, because it's used like 90% of the time with just about anything that people do with two-dimensional imagery, whether that's a movie poster, comic books, it's illustrations, etc., etc. If it's not a cartoon, it's flat. If it's got lighting effects, it's probably going to have some kind of rim light. Guess how long that took to figure out. What else can I do? I'm not going to crumple this up. Art and anxiety, that's another topic I would love to get into, maybe when people are chatting and asking questions and stuff, because those two things are, I think, always going to be tied together on some level for everybody. And it's a very interesting thing to unpack, because what's the core of it? I think it's because if you are making stuff, whether it's music or paintings or comics, whatever, you're going to want it to be good. If you don't care whether it's good or not, it's not going to turn out very good. And then you're not going to get a lot of buyers or customers or whatever. I'm looking for like a lighter gray than that. That's sad. Yeah. So the point is, if you are making something, it's because you care about making something good. And if you care about something good, then there's going to be some amount of apprehension or anxiety, whatever you want to call it, wrapped around, the outcome. Is this going to turn out good or not? And you don't know really if it's going to turn out good until you're done. When you're done, you can look at it and say, well, you know what? This is worth keeping, or I'm going to toss this or put it aside and maybe I can fix it later. I wish I had more pens right now, because I'm really kind of running out of ways of mixing this up. Yeah, that's not going to help. So you're always going to have that mix of feelings when you're trying to create something, I think. And the important thing is to realize that everybody feels like that on some level. Unless you're Jim Carrey, I don't know. He seems to just kind of do cool stuff and not care what people, there's people out there that really seem to not care what people think. But I think the more you can kind of tamp that down while you're making stuff, the better. But it's okay to understand that everybody feels that. You know what would be cool is if, like, I draw and then somebody else talks and they have an actual doctorate in this kind of stuff, an actual psychiatrist or therapist, whatever you want to call him, her. I think that would be way more interesting than hearing me, because I just got like theories based on my few decades of trying to work around these problems or figure them out. Man, once you realize that you have anxieties about stuff that you're creating, it does, I think, make it a lot easier to not let it get in the way. Because was I watching, what was his name? Zappa or Blippa? What's his name? I'm blanking on his name. The art guy that has 3 million followers here on YouTube. Jazza. I watched one of his videos on creating YouTube videos on Skillshare. I don't think it was on YouTube at all, but I would check it out on Skillshare and check out my own class while you're at it. Come on. But the point is, he had this whole video about making YouTube videos, right? And all the takes you got to take and all the aspects of lighting it, blah, blah, blah. But the most helpful part of this video was actually the added bonus footage, like an extra little chapter at the end. That's what blew my mind, because what it was the raw footage of him creating a YouTube video with all the misspeakings and verbal farts and whatever problems he had saying the lines that he wanted to say. And between each line that he would deliver, if he messed up, he would just pause and sort of reset and like not even really move, I think, in order to keep it easier to edit. But the thing that blew my mind was that he didn't get like all mad. He didn't get it. There wasn't a number of times that you would get to and then you're supposed to be frustrated, and I thought that I've just been going my whole life maybe thinking that you're going to try things and then try it again, and then like the third time, if it still doesn't work, that's when you get kind of frustrated and mad and you gotta like have a little temper tantrum. I'm not saying that Jazza solved all this without medication and counseling as well, of course, but it's important to realize that there is no number of times that you're supposed to try things and then get mad. You can just keep trying and reset and just never get mad. That's an option too. So I appreciated seeing that. What would be funny is if I've left his shoes white, like he has some kind of weird platinum, not platinum, what is that, PVC vinyl white loafers. That would be pretty funny, but I'm not going to do that. That would be weird. Well, how are we doing on time here? All right, we got like 2 minutes for it to be an hour, so maybe I should try to wrap this up on some level or other. Sometimes you gotta just do what's gotta be done to make it done, right? I guess if these were like leather or PVC vinyl, whatever, they would pick up some of that light since we decided that this place is on fire. Maybe even in socks a little bit, just for extra drama. Okay, so let's say that you're still tuning in on this and you want to know more about the real Let's Draw Goths is going live Thursday night. My intention with that, which I should have mentioned earlier, I'm not going to be coloring. I'm going to be drawing you, perhaps. Yeah, you know, I think the best thing really that came from doing the coloring book for me is just meeting virtually, you know, of course, people from all over the country and all over the world who identify in some way as being, you know, your darker alternative types. Don't like to be labeled, I'm sure, which is why it's kind of funny to call this Let's Draw Goths, because maybe nobody considers themselves a goth, I don't know. But you gotta make it understandable for the masses, so sorry. But the point is, I'm going to draw anybody who submits a picture to Instagram. There's a new account just devoted to this project called @Let'sDrawGoths. And so if you do the name tagging, the @tag for @Let'sDrawGoths, maybe put a little hashtag Let's Draw Goths, then I'll see it and just try to fit in as many appropriate pictures as I can. I really am looking for pictures of you, not something that you found on Pinterest or something, you know. It's important to, you know, make sure that I have permission to draw who I'm drawing on here so nobody ever tries to tell me to take it down or something. So if it's you, then we all know that there's consent for that and there's no problem. I'm kind of, let's see here, what can we do to finish this up quickly? Going to overtime a couple minutes in order to, let's see, do this door. Oh, you know what, the door isn't in frame, so we're not even going to worry about it. There's a door down here, but since it's not even in frame for this video, I'm just going to leave it. And maybe I'll make his shoes kind of extra shiny. I don't know if this will work. I'm really looking forward to my new pens. Having a million pens, you know, this 120 set, whatever I bought, it's not about spending a boatload of money in order to be a cool artist and have an expensive set of pens. It's not in order to add a million colors to your composition. It's really about having the options and picking out a few options in a color scheme that you know will work out, and then work from there. You know, maybe pick out just a couple pens and a couple markers that you think look good together, and see what you can do with one or two colors plus black, you know. That is going to be something that's going to help you as an illustrator more than having the entire spectrum going through your artwork. But let's face it, this is Let's Draw Goths, and if anybody is watching, they're probably not interested in having the entire rainbow in their artwork anyway, right? Gross. Well, I don't know, Kirk. Does this look okay? Does this look weird? I think if I kind of exaggerate the rim light effect going on with this leg, I'll get away with it better. It kind of looks like he's got blue slacks on right now. Who is that pinup artist? Olivia. I forget her last name. Just look up pinup artist Olivia if you don't know who I'm talking about. She posts these videos of her doing like time lapse, and she uses like every kind of media you can think of to make the looks that she wants to make. I just think that's so cool. Whoa! I think that's so cool. She will use the giant fat marker that's like 2.5 inches wide or whatever. This one. I don't mean this one as far as my pens. This is the one that I need. But she has, I've tried it in the past to try to fill in black quickly or whatever. It's even a pain to do that. But she'll do like vinyl, you know, leather, hair very quickly by just having this giant fat marker dance around over the, what looks like wood maybe she'll work on, some kind of sanded down wood. I'm not sure. I'd love to talk about how she does her work someday. Also for the one on Thursday night, I think I'm going to go digital just so I can work faster and draw as many people as I can. I've done a lot of live events and worked also some gigs for corporations and whatnot in the Bay Area where I've done things with traditional media and let's see here. I'm good nuts with that. Traditional media and digital. I had a pretty sweet gig for a while where there was like a mobile device that had just come out for consumers, and this company that made them hired me to kind of demo what you can do with painting by painting people quickly digitally on their device, and that was a lot of fun. So I kind of learned how to work digitally quickly, and you kind of have to get into a groove a little bit, but hopefully I can do that for the Thursday night show, get in as many people as I can. If nobody submits this week, since it's pretty short notice on this first one, I'll probably maybe work from yearbook photos. You know, that's one of my favorite things to do is just bust out the yearbook. And I think rights and usage wise, I'm okay. There's not really, you know, I'm sure you wouldn't want to put these people on a book cover or anything, but you don't want to piss off the photographer, first of all. That's the thing you definitely want to avoid, pissing off professional photographers who make their living just like I do with their imagery, you know. I don't want people turning my paintings into club flyers or whatever, and photographers don't want you just grabbing their photos and turning them into your illustrations, you know. So like for the coloring book, I tried to track down everybody I could and do a lot of online sleuthing, and everybody who could be tracked down was definitely tracked down to the best of my abilities, and this guy was not. So if he's mad about being in the book, sure, let me know. But everybody else, for the most part, I was able to find them and talk to them about the project, and they've just been so super cool about being enthusiastic about Let's Draw Goths and the coloring book and all of it. And that's why I love this subculture, because it's just a very like generous, giving, gentle people, you know. We're not talking about people who enjoy probably mud bogging with their 4x4 or monster truck rallies or that sort of noisier things, you know. We're a group of like-minded creatives who like to maybe dance in front of the mirror and practice for a while alone in your room first, you know. Make sure you're skulking, crawling over the coffin dance looks okay to your satisfaction at home first, and then you try it out at the clubs. Right now, that's all we got, and that's gonna change sooner than we feel, hopefully. You know, we're all kind of locked down right now, but I hope we can go to the clubs soon. And I guess that's about it for this. I think it looks all right. It's a little impressionistic, but that's okay. I'm going to watch some more Olivia videos and try to decode how to do this kind of stuff quicker next time. Oh, you know what would look cool? It would look kind of cool if this one was lit up with the light from the fire as well. It's getting kind of green because I'm moving fast, but what are you going to do? You get the idea, you know? The kind of blue and the yellow mix. So I wouldn't do this for like a, you know, gallery piece or something, but this is supposed to be fun, so I'm not too worried about the green. Just trying to get rid of as much of the white as possible because there really wouldn't be any reason for stuff to be glowing white in this scene. All right, I think that's okay. I'm gonna have to give up now. No art is finished, only abandoned. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this test session of Let's Draw Goths Live. And if you've made it to the end, congratulations. You have won a golden ticket to, I don't know, what could I send you? Like some clove cigarettes or no? If you're, well, make it clove gum, okay? Let me know your P.O. box and I'll send you some clove gum for sticking around to the end of this thing. And we'll see you next time. I'll try to go live again sometime tomorrow to practice again. And then the real one is going to be Tuesday night, 8:30 Pacific time. That's like California and stuff, you know, Washington, etc. 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. And I'll be drawing pictures that have been submitted to Let's Draw Goths on Instagram, hashtag Let's Draw Goths. That's it. All right. Thank you guys for joining me. I'll see you next time.